more technique of the banjo. Doing it on a banjo, very nice old banjo from about 1895, built by the G. Dobson Company in Boston. We have nylon strings on it, as were common at the time. It's a little bit before steel strings were prominent. I'll review the sheet with the title Strumming into Frailing. We'll go through each of the lines on there just so you can see how they work and get a sense of how they sound as well. I'm going to focus mostly on the right hand for this, so very briefly, just to review, we'll take a look at the chords that we're going to be using here and throughout the class. Open, of course, we have a G. C chord, and for any chord we grab, or for just about anything we do with the left hand, we're putting the neck of the banjo deep into the pit between our index finger and our thumb. So we're holding it as if it were a beer bottle or a broom, getting those fingers all the way up and around, so our fretting fingers have as much room as possible to come back down on the banjo. And here's our C chord and our D7 chord. And you have a chart. You have chord charts 3. Mind you, the fingering on that, so we'll just focus on the right hand for our purposes here. Right hand, to remind us, is held very comfortably. We're keeping these two fingers curled underneath, not tightly, but just loosely curled underneath. And the best, probably visual metaphor I can suggest is to imagine having an egg, a hard-boiled egg, resting in the crook of your index, middle, and thumb, right there, like that, as if you're holding a very small baseball and about to pinch it. Certainly something about the size of the egg. So the frailing hand is not a two-dimensional flat thing that you might see a lot of people using. That's not quite the proper right hand technique. A little bit better would be to have a three-dimensional aspect to it. Rotate it around, something like that. It allows your fingers to get into the strings a little bit. So, our downward strum, if you recall, is very simple and straightforward. You can use both fingers for that. And of course that gets very monotonous over time. We're just strumming on the downbeat. We want to add something on the offbeat. That's what's going to give the banjo its characteristic tumble, its rhythm, its bounciness. So we'll start by adding a thumb note on the second and third beat. Second and fourth beat of each measure. It will sound like this. And what I'm doing is catching my thumb as I come down on the strum for those beats. And once my downward strum is completed, I just flick the fifth string to release it. In other words, it's not two separate motions. It's not this. It's a single motion down and just the natural release of the fifth string as we come back up. So it's part of the same motion. So given that, here's what that first line would sound like. I'm going to do all of these as at a medium tempo. And of course, you should be doing this as slowly as you possibly can go, so you maintain the nice, smooth, even chord changes. As you start to get more comfortable with those, you can pick up the tempo. But go as slow as you need to go at first. Line one. To kind of bring us a little bit closer to the frailing technique I demonstrated at first, we're going to isolate a single string on the first and third beat rather than a full strum. So in lieu of, we'll pick out the first string for that first beat. And this is line 2. From there, we want to get to the point where we can pick out an individual string other than the first string. The first one is fairly easy since it's out there in the open, and what lies beneath it is just the skin of the banjo head there. But we do want to be able to pick out individual notes on the inside strings as well. So line 3, the next line, has us picking out the third string for the first beat of that boom chaka rhythm. And it would sound like this. When we strike that inside string, it's much like the way we do it when we strike the first string. It's not just a downward motion, it's kind of an inward motion as well. We're rapping at that string. When using either the index finger or the middle finger, either one is fine, doesn't matter whichever one you're more comfortable using. Try them both, experiment with both, but settle on whichever one feels more comfortable, and that'll be fine. We're using that finger to strike the string. Doing the strum thumb, just as we were doing before. And we can elaborate on that. By this point, we are doing claw hammer banjo. This is essentially the basic Frailing rhythm, as most books would call it, most people would call it. We can elaborate on that a little bit, though, give it a little bit more of a depth in the sound by alternating the note that we're picking between those strum thumbs, and that's what the fourth line is suggesting. It sounds like this. Doing, as the tablature suggests, I'm just alternating between the third and the fourth string. I'm playing those strings no matter what I'm fretting, so the tone of those strings, the pitch is going to change as I change chords, but the right hand pattern is the same. Third string, strum, thumb, fourth string, strum, thumb, third string, strum, thumb, fourth string, strum, and so on and so forth. And finally, that last line, the last little elaboration we have on this, is to add a hammer. You see that a hammer is sounding a note without necessarily plucking it. I'm going to pluck the fourth string, I'm going to play the fourth string here, and hammer into the fourth string second fret. Only the first note is sounded by my striking with the right hand. The second note is sounded entirely by my pounding into it with that middle finger. And we can work that into the basic Frailing rhythm, as we see in the fifth line of the exercise sheet. It sounds like this.